and welcome to Monarchist Minute. I'm Victor Smith. Joining me today are a very different group of characters. First, one of our usual suspects, Prussian Dixie, and we are also joined by Constantine, as well as a very rare appearance from our Chancellor, John Arnott.
And here to maintain my my record as being at every single podcast, even though I'm at work right now, it's me, Charles York. Yay!
Yay.
I shall return, but for now I have to eat. But I shall return.
All right, thank you very much for
Hopefully
that.
I would like
And
to add, probably, if the house is clear on Fridays at this time, I'll be on.
all
I'm
right,
gonna try
thank you
and
very
make
much. So, on the docket for tonight, first, elections in Sweden and the United States.
Oh,
Then,
my favorite.
Then, Lindsey Graham with a controversial bill that could throw the easily winnable midterms for the GOP. Then, illegal aliens and Martha's Vineyard. Not so fast, my friend, says the Martha's Vineyard people, as many of them seek to send them away, but not before they feed and clothe them before they do so. And finally, what to do with the states as well as the tribes of Native Americans under our monarchical system. We will go to Prussian Dixie for the primaries as well as coverage of the Swedish election.
Thank you so very much, Victor. Always great to be here with such absolutely wonderful people. First, we'll start off with America because we're better. I mean, what? So, not very many primaries happened this time. This was basically the last round of primaries for the midterm election, but we have results out of the states of New Hampshire and Rhode Island. In Rhode Island, incumbent. What's an incumbent?
Incumbent. It's an
Like
incumbent, and incumbent is the guy who was previously in office.
It sounds like the income. It sounds like I was trying to say incumbent and cabinet at the same time. Well, that don't sound right. The incumbent, Chris Sununu, successfully won his GOP primary with 78.7% of the vote, getting a total of 113,000 votes. Good for him.
Sununu, that is a name.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, that is a name.
And now for the U.S. Senate, the GOP primary was a tight-fought race between Donald Bolduc and Chuck Morse, Bolduc being the Trump endorsement, Morse being the Sununu endorsement, and Bolduc successfully won, beating Morse out by roughly under 2,000 votes in a roughly 1.5% lead. Now, Bolduc has a hard-fought election that he will have to deal with against incumbent Democratic Senator Maggie Hassan. Can he win? Well, I always like to say anything's possible. Is it probable? Who knows? But yeah, isn't that fun? Last on, we have Rhode Island, in which the governor incumbent race was much tighter than would have been expected, with incumbent Daniel McKee winning by roughly 3,000 votes against Helena Folkes. Close race there. GOP, Ashley Callis easily winning primary election. Lieutenant governorship, incumbent Sabina Matos easily winning re-election. And then Aaron Guckian, let's go with that. Winning the lieutenant governor election. And let's see, what else? The House primaries, because Rhode Island has 2 House seats somehow, in which, well, basically everyone was running unopposed, so that doesn't matter. Now we move on. Now we move up into the Nordic country of Sweden. Now, the Swedish election was a very tight-fought election between the
You're
left.
forgetting something, Prussian. You're forgetting something.
What am I forgetting?
The home state of our president.
Delaware. Who cares about Delaware? Fine.
Nobody cares about Delaware.
Exactly.
Not even people from Delaware.
I don't even think the president
They
cares.
don't even have an airport, dude. Like, they don't have an international airport.
Sad. Hold on, you're gonna have to give me a second. I didn't think about them. Kind of just honestly, in my opinion, I think Delaware should own the entire Delmarva Peninsula. Okay,
Yeah.
Popular opinion, but yeah, I'm gonna say that right now.
No, that's a correct opinion.
Exactly. I honestly don't know why Virginia owns the very edge peninsula of that. Honestly, it's weird, but along with Virginia, love that state. Now on to Europe. In the Kingdom of Sweden, a very tightly fought election between the left of center bloc, led by incumbent Prime Minister Magdalena Andersson, and the right of center bloc, including the Sweden Democrats, led by Jimmy Åkesson, and the Moderate Party, led by Ulf Kristersson. And the exit polling originally showed a slight majority edged out by the left of center blocks, which includes the Social Democratic Party, the Left Party, the Center Party, and the Green Party. Now, those of you who are Americans and don't understand any of these politics, don't worry. It's very confusing because these countries have a proportional system. So the amount of votes you get is the percentage of votes you get is the percentage of seats you're going to get. Isn't that fun? It would be interesting if we had that, wouldn't it? And then the right of center bloc, including the Swedish Democrats, not to be confused with American Democrats. The Sweden Democrats are a right-wing party, okay? And make sure everyone understands. The Moderate Party, the Christian Democratic Party, and the Liberal Party. Now, the Liberal Party here is more of a classical liberal, okay? I gotta say that too, because everything's different in the U.S. And as the counting continued on through earlier this week, at first the left of center bloc was barely leading out, but then the right of center edged their way out and forming a slight lead over the left of center. And one of the massive waves that came out of this was the Sweden Democrats, the anti-immigration populist party, successfully getting to second place, beating out the traditional right-wing party, the Moderates, which now means the Sweden Democrats, although most parties refuse to work with them, the Moderates, Christian Democrats, and Liberals now don't really have a choice. It's either they work with them or give another social democratic government. I don't think they want that. But that's out from Sweden. Ain't that crazy, y'all?
Yeah, that is completely and totally nuts. That the fact that the traditional right-wing party in Swedish politics is called the Moderate Party. If that's the traditional right-wing party, I would love to know what a conservative is like in Sweden.
Well, you see, the Moderate Party is more of what they would call a liberal conservative party. Now, a
Yeah.
liberal conservative, you could say, would be someone from, well, Victor, you would know, your current governor, what's his name again? I can't remember.
Larry Hogan.
It would be from Larry Hogan to, like, maybe Mitt Romney. That's basically what a liberal conservative would be in our country.
Okay.
So for us, that's basically like, I don't even know if you could say a neocon, maybe a neocon, but I mean, liberal conservatives usually, because liberal conservatives usually aren't like wanting to constantly go to war with countries.
So, all right. And of course, Delaware, if you can pull up the Delaware results, because we've got to be complete with our coverage.
Of course, my mistake. Come on, load through. So oh gosh, wait, what even primaries were there? Hold on. Well, I'd only really seen that. The only elections they really had in Delaware was U.S. House elections, which would just be their incumbent. And since they only have a singular seat, it was basically just the incumbent, Lisa Blunt Rochester, who was easily able to clinch hers. So really not a lot you can really get out of Delaware.
All
Mainly 'cause
right,
there weren't very many elections coming out of Delaware. There was no governor election, there was no Senate, it was just the House, and they only have a singular seat anyways.
it was just the one House election?
Just that one, because they only got a single seat in the House. They're like Vermont, Wyoming, the
Not even
Dakotas.
a state, not even a governor election?
No, just the House. Just the House. No Senate, no governor, just the House.
That is
That was the only.
weird.
Well, I mean, yeah, that can happen. I mean, North Carolina, we don't have our governor elections until the president, like the same time as the presidential elections. That's when Coopity Coop won his re-election.
Right. That is actually quite interesting. And I wanted to just, I don't think there's many trends to see, but I think the only real interesting point was that New Hampshire race where the Trump endorsement actually got the election.
It was very interesting to see, especially since it wasn't exactly expected due to the fact that it's the New Hampshire's known as the Sununu machine, or that's basically their kind of sort of political machine that works in the state. But one thing that was very interesting out of the state of New Hampshire's Senate primary election is the fact that the Democratic primary got 93,000 votes, while the Republican primary got a total of 141,000 votes.
Wow.
I know. So I don't think Bolduc is going to win, but the fact that the Republicans got a total of 141,000 votes in their primary, that's usually a good sign for whatever party gets the most primary votes. I don't know if that's really going to mean a lot because, of course, as I said, Bolduc only won with 37% of the vote, of the Republican vote, so he will have to work hard to get the coalition together to possibly win.
Right, and that's going to be a very difficult task. Which race was only separated by 4,000 votes?
I believe that was Pennsylvania, where Dr. Oz barely nudged out against McCormick.
I can't believe he won.
Honestly,
he won.
I'm shocked that Oz won his primary election.
He was getting dogged on by basically everybody, and
everybody and their mom, dude.
Like,
actually, no. I'm sorry, it wasn't. Oz beat McCormick by under 1,000 votes.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Actually, was Oz? Was he endorsed by Trump?
Yes, he was.
Probably.
That makes sense.
He was endorsed by Trump.
That might have been the thing that did it, because a lot of people he's insincere. I happen to agree. I don't know. He just rubs me the wrong way.
I go along with what Michael Knowles said about Dr. Oz, and that's the fact that the dude is not actually a conservative at all. He's not. He has said on multiple occasions that he is pro-abortion. He's pro a lot of socially left-wing things, but that's neither here nor there for right now. I will say that I would much rather people vote for him than the Democratic candidate John Fetterman, due to the fact that John Fetterman has said that he is fine with letting criminals out of prison, including murderers, convicted murderers.
Wow, that is a bit of a stretch.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
but of course, John Fetterman though had a stroke not too long ago, and I've seen multiple videos of him, and it's kind of worse than Biden at some points.
Yeah, I mean, this says more about the Republican Party than anything. You gotta get a pro-choice Republican candidate narrowly eking out a victory and being supported by the former Republican president. So that just goes to show you that.
I mean, it's also due to the fact that Trump, whenever he makes his endorsements, he doesn't like to lose. So instead of giving the endorsement to the person I thought the best possible choice would have been Kathy Barnett. And she got some good endorsements too, because she even got endorsed by Michael Flynn, Joni Ernst, even the Gun Owners of America. The Republican National Hispanic Assembly even supported her.
Yeah. It says a lot about the Republican Party, if I'm honest. I don't feel so safe with them, I would say. They're not, for a semi, constitutional monarchist or a conservative of any kind, really, don't think that 100% of your bread is going to be buttered with the Republican Party. That's just not the way it's going to happen.
Yeah. And I mean, heck, that's a good segue into our next topic. Good old Lindsey Graham.
Oh, yeah.
So, to those of you who have not heard, though I don't expect y'all to not have heard of this, Lindsey Graham has put forward a bill in the Senate that will ban abortions past 15 weeks. Now, I don't really know what everyone else's opinion here is. I would love to hear what y'all's first off opinion is about his bill.
I mean, we already technically took the win with the overturning of Roe versus Wade. I think we just need to sit on that victory. And from what I've seen, okay, so it's a pretty compared to the relative discourse that's going on now with abortion and everything like that, it's more on the conservative end. I mean, I personally 100% agree with it. I think it should be I think it should be more restrictive, but it's not going to go over well with moderate Republicans and Democrats.
I would have to say on this bill, I like the bill. I like it. But
it's more so the ramifications of it.
Yes, exactly. The timing of this is absolutely horrible. And I think he did this on purpose. I'm going to say it right now. I am not a fan of Lindsey Graham. I never have been. I am not a fan of him. He voted for every Biden appointee. He says he's a hard conservative Republican, and then he just votes whenever be done.
Republicans talk about
fraud. He's a fraud.
When I say Republicans, I mean small R Republicans, like people who want the Republican system. People hate the fact that we have long-term rulers. And when they have long-term rulers, people that have stayed in office consistently over the course of there are people in the White House and in the White House and in Congress that have been around almost as long as the Queen has, relatively speaking. And I mean, honestly, it's the pot calling the kettle black, And I kind of appreciate people who are, oh yeah, we need term limits for Congress. I mean, at least they're being honest about, the Republican ideals, as opposed to saying, oh yeah, Republics are good.
Now, but what you said about the length of them in it, this kind of comes back to the fact of here's something interesting. Fun fact: Lindsey Graham succeeded Strom Thurmond as senator. Let that sink in for a moment. Lindsey Graham succeeded Strom Thurmond, aka the man who had the longest filibuster in the history of the U.S. Senate, and didn't exit Congress until he passed away at 101. And that was in I think 2004 maybe.
Just to put that into perspective, he was 5 years older than the Queen.
Yeah, let me check.
If
No,
he's
he was 102 years old, and he died in
102,
2003.
holy crap. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
he actually no, he was 100 years old. Sorry, he was 100 years old, and he died in 2003. And then he was immediately succeeded by Lindsey Graham. So Lindsey Graham has been in this seat since 2003.
Man. I mean,
It,
I don't personally, if it's an upper house, I don't personally have a problem with it, but, you know, at least own it. Like, if you are going to be Republicans, at least own it. Like, oh yeah, we need term limits, but that's the thing. A lot of Republicans of any country don't like that idea.
Yeah.
And
So Lindsey,
election,
Lindsey Graham was first elected in 2002. He has been in office since then, and I think this really comes back to what we think of as, we believe in a monarchy, and yes, that means that they will inherit titles, but it is very much different from what is used now, because what we have now in the US is a system by which they are funded by their donors and by people who are just paying them off to keep them going as time goes on. They're sitting on it, gaining as much money and quote unquote popularity as possible. Whereas what we believe is, we believe in a monarchy. We believe that the monarch shouldn't have to be subject to these donors and these people. The monarch is separate. The monarch does not need it. They represent the people much better because they don't have to kowtow to others.
Yeah, I mean, and of course there's going to be exceptions, because I know every time I bring that line of thought up, people are going to say, "Oh, well, you can bribe a monarch, you can do all this stuff." But when you're looking at governmental systems, you can't look at any specific thing. Like, if there's a chance of something happening, it's going to probably happen eventually if history goes on long enough. So it's all relative. Relatively speaking, monarchs are easier, are able to stay independent longer than republics, because republics, built in, you need to adhere to a party. You need to be loyal to your party, and that party funds you. So that's kind of built into the system. And instead of having a dynasty or anything like that, you're loyal to the party, and you're loyal to the donors, you're loyal to the interest groups. So essentially, you come into the White House on life support, and that life support is your donors, is your party, because without that, you wouldn't be.
Well, okay, but let's get back to the actual bill that Mr. Graham has introduced.
Yes.
I mean,
Let's get back to that. So, as was said earlier, Mr. Graham's bill was a ban on abortion from 15 weeks, which is actually in line with the average in Europe. The average in Europe is actually 14 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. I was about to say, like, that is incorrect. How dare you lie? It's 13. It's 14 weeks. Actually, wait. Wait a minute. No, it's 13 weeks.
Oh, it's 13 weeks.
Goodness gracious.
All right. I find it very interesting how the left wants us to be more like Europe, but no, not like that.
They want us to be. Oh, they don't even want us to be like the Netherlands or the UK, because in the UK, excluding Northern Ireland, their abortion goes up to 24 weeks. In the Netherlands and Scotland, Wales, and England. But even then, these people, they don't want just limited. They want as much as possible.
yeah.
So when you're fighting between certain extremes, and now I will say that abortion is an extremely grave thing, and we should work to eliminate abortions.
Yes.
If we are going to do that, the left is going to want certain things, such as mandatory maternity and paternity leave for a certain amount of time, as well as full pay for that certain amount of time, etc., etc. And I would actually be willing to grant maternity and paternity leave with full pay. I don't know how long they would want that for. I have an idea for it. I'm sure they have their own idea, and we can talk about that.
I mean, but they're not going to be like. I don't think the Democratic Party is going to see this as an opportunity to compromise on anything. They're not going to be
It's
like,
not.
okay,
They're
okay,
gonna vote. They're going to vote no and attempt to pass a law saying that abortion is guaranteed in these United States.
Exactly. And I
yeah,
find it, and one
Which
of
is
the
why the Democrats have branded this election as Roe-vember.
exactly they're desperately trying to hope that this is the issue that they can use to keep on going because they know they're going to be creamed in this election if they don't do anything about it. They need something that they need to peg themselves onto as a hopes. And so that's really what they're trying to do here.
yeah. I mean, they're not going to see this, and they're not going to say, oh well, okay, well, you can't have abortions past 13 weeks. How about we increase maternity leave and paternity leave then?
The thing
For the
is,
first time in American history, we'll have a law for that.
yeah.
And that's
And
the
of course, the problem
we're the
is they don't want that though.
yeah we're
That's what
one
they
of the
want.
few
They just want
nations
abortion on demand.
we're one of the few nations on the planet that don't have anything like that.
Yeah, and
But
it's really
my point
sad
is,
because we obviously need it.
yeah, my point is, they're not going to want to compromise at all, and that's
Yeah.
ultimately what you end up with when you're dealing with this kind of system, and you don't have a guy that's kind of detached. Like we don't have a referee. I would like to think a potential monarch or a hypothetical monarch would be a referee to say, okay, guys,
Oh,
I'm going to keep.
well, if you want to, I'm glad you brought that up because I believe it's the Prince of Liechtenstein
Yeah, good example.
said,
Example.
yeah, said that he was going to threaten to do something. I forget.
I believe he stated that he would leave the country and bring his wealth with him. So he would abdicate and flee if abortion was. I think it was a referendum either on his executive power or abortion or anything like that, and
I think it
they
might have
support.
been abortion.
Yeah, it was something like that. I know he's done that multiple times, and I 100% agree with it. Because we need referees. We don't need and that's initially the founders tried to do something like that, but ultimately it winded up being okay, a member of this party essentially wins, and it's just like a slightly varied parliamentary system where we elect a guy and he's in there and he's on our team, and whatever happens in Congress is either for him or against him. He's not going to step in and say, "Okay, we need to figure something out," and I'm going to hold a veto over you. I'm going to hold a veto over you guys until you guys work something out. We've never had that as a nation. We've never had a person in the executive say, "Okay, we need to actually work something out here. We can't just have this pushing match constantly. So we need to work something out." We've never really had that. I mean, the closest we might have gotten is like a George Washington figure, but he never had to do that. Um,
I
but
mean, and of course, we bring that up, and of course, and we should probably also discuss the left is not going to accept any compromise on the abortion issue at all.
yeah,
They
exactly.
also want the paternity and maternity leave, etc. They also want that, and I think they might also want like free, more free stuff related to child care or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with stuff like that, but they're not just focused on that. That to them, if it's in the bill, and something like abortion is getting banned left and right, they're not going to care about that stuff. And I don't think they actually genuinely care about that stuff, at least not the party. You might find somebody on the street that really cares about that stuff. But as a party, I don't think they're really interested in that kind of thing, unless it's packaged with abortion, unless it's packaged with stuff like that. You're not going to find anybody in Congress that tweets out, "Oh well, if you're going to ban abortion, how about we add maternity and paternity leave?" Then you're not going to have that in Congress. Honestly, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think anyone would ever really do that because of the fact that why would you want to compromise with anybody when you could just try and shove through exactly what you want? That both sides do that anyway.
You want to win,
Exactly. It's not about trying to do what's best for the nation. It's about winning.
You want your guy in the Oval Office on your side, and you're going to push stuff through when he's in office. You don't have to worry about you don't have to worry about a Republican Party, a Democratic Party, and the king. You're only worrying about the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, our side and theirs. There's no order. There's nothing. There's no president that's going to come into the Oval Office and say, enough with this garbage, and try and limit this stuff and knock some sense into people and say, okay, Congress, you were once an institution, at least got some degree of compromise down. You need to actually compromise on stuff or actually work with people. Now there are some that people do work with each other on in Congress, but that's not nearly enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Like for example, with this abortion bill. Now, I personally would want abortion to be completely gotten rid of. But if I literally cannot get abortion completely gotten rid of, I would want something that is more in line with what Europe has. If I can give the Democrats all the free stuff that they would want with regards to childcare and maternity and paternity leave, then maybe they'll be able to shut up for a bit and get this passed. But no, they're not interested in that.
I was about to say, that's the beauty of it. They won't shut up. They're not going to shut up. They want to win. They want a one-party state. That's it.
Which is why the Republicans, I'm sorry to Mr. Graham, the Republicans need to go for the jugular because we know the Democrats are not going to shut up about it. The Republicans shouldn't shut up about it either.
Yeah, I mean, if I heard Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez come out right now and say, I would like a one-party state in this country, I wouldn't be surprised at all. That's their goal. They want to beat the other party into non-existence. That's the goal here. It's not about compromise. It's not about working together. It's not about parties are supposed to be, in a way, factions. They're supposed to be interest groups, or they're supposed to be groups of people to voice a certain political agenda in Congress. They're not supposed to be the things in which the cogs of government turn. It's very dangerous to have that, and I think we're paying for it. We've been paying for it for the last 200 years or so.
Speaking of paying for things, we have metaphorically been paying for the rise of a party structure in America for 200 years. And for the last few days, the people of Martha's Vineyard have been paying, actually, the people of Florida and Texas have been paying for their governors to send illegal aliens into the Northeast, where people have voted for them to be sanctuary cities and states.
And so on and so forth.
That's the fun about voting for something that's 1,000 miles away. When you vote somebody in office that you want an open border, and you vote for that open border, that open border is thousands of miles away. Why are you voting on that to begin with? But then also, it's not my responsibility. An open border is not my responsibility until it becomes my responsibility. And this is what they get. You play stupid games, you win stupid prizes.
prizes. Yeah.
And this is what's happening right now. This is what's happening. They reap what they sow, and honestly, this is the least radical thing you could do in regards to kind of being, what do you call it, petty, or like the good kind of petty, where you're just like, okay, you've made your bed, lay in it, type
Yeah.
thing. It's the
And of
least.
course, the people of Martha's Vineyard actually treated them with compassion. But
Yeah,
now I think it's become a little too much for them. So they're like, okay, we want you to go somewhere else.
yeah. It's all
And I
fun and
think,
games. It's all fun and games until you have to allow a group of immigrants
Yeah,
into your house.
it's they want it until they actually have to deal with it, and it's the same thing in place in New York and Washington D.C. when the mayor of D.C. stated that they were having problems with it and that they didn't want to become a border town, and it's just like, oh, it's all fun and dandy, but what about the actual border towns? They didn't
Yeah,
want to become
and
that either. And it's
yeah, this.
exactly because they want more immigrants
Yeah,
because of the fact they use them to gain more power. It is not about them actually caring about them. They don't actually care about them. They are
yeah,
simply another political tool to be
mm,
used in their own power.
yeah. And another example of this is Poland when they were dealing with Ukrainian immigrants from the Russian invasion of Ukraine. They let them into their house. That was the first thing that happened, was Polish people letting Polish churches, Polish people letting immigrants into their house. And it's a completely different situation, of course, but well, there might as well be a cartel war going on in Mexico right now. But
Well, the thing is, these aren't Mexicans that are coming over though. They're from Central America though, where
mm,
although yes, they are in chaos, many of the Central American countries have begun to at least somewhat stabilize themselves. And of course, people like our Vice President Kamala Harris, she will say, "Well, we need to address the root problems here," and her answer to that is, "Throw money at it. What could possibly go wrong?"
yeah, instead of investing in a school
it's not like
system,
we've tried. It's not like we've tried throwing money at Central America to fix their problems before, hasn't it?
No, of course not. I mean, when has throwing money not worked? You got a problem? Throw money at it.
yeah, I mean, just
Usually
think.
that'll make them
Plus,
shut up for a few seconds.
I
Well,
mean,
we do joke,
Yeah, yeah.
but Venezuela is legitimately going through a very tough time
Mhm.
with their.
That is also due to the just terrible economic management by the central
Yes.
government of just implementing a completely socialist top-down style system, and also the fact they are just extremely corrupt too.
Yeah,
our
my one of my friends from college was actually an immigrant from Venezuela, and he worked at the Venezuelan consulate in New York, counting the election and stuff. And he got threatening emails saying, "You better count for Maduro or else."
Hmm. And it's just complete and utter
This would have been
electoral
around
fraud.
like 2016 time, I think.
Yeah. So it's just they want to keep their own power, and it's exactly what a politician's goal is. A politician's goal is not to improve. Well, at the very start, it's they probably have a goal, but then when they get in there, they're like, "Eh, I'll just stay here because it's better to get more
you
money and
see,
more power out of this."
if you take any U.S. Gov class, you realize that most of the job of a congressman is calling donors, is calling people like that. It has nothing to do with the actual representation of people. It has nothing to do with that. You're calling donors. You're calling, essentially, you're spending hours of your day gaining money for your next election, and that's it. And that's what you do in Congress.
Yeah.
And going back, our to the whole immigration thing, our assimilation is being vastly and quickly outpaced by our immigration right now. We're just letting anybody illegal come in, and they are flooding our border right now, and that's not how you get immigrants. And we've done it in the past. We've been able to do it in the past. Why can't we do it again? And the simple thing is, there's more of a it's like you said, there's more of a premium on their votes as opposed to their cultural, recalibrating for America.
And of course, now that President Trump's return to Mexico policy has been
Overturned, yeah.
overturned, these people that are attempting to seek asylum, the Venezuelans that are attempting to seek asylum, they aren't going on a boat to Miami. They're going up the Mexican border to apply for asylum at the U.S.-Mexico border, as
Well,
opposed
the
to.
problem is most of the people doing it aren't even doing that. They don't do anything. They hop the border and they just run. They don't even
Yeah.
go through the proper systems because they know if they go through the systems, it will take way too long. And so what they do is they just hop over the border, run into the country, and then they can do whatever they want after that. There is
And
nothing stopping them because there's video. There's actual video of people just watching us. They just hop the fence, run away, and they don't do anything about it. This so far, keyword, so far this fiscal year, we have had the most illegal border crossings in our history, and this fiscal year isn't even over yet.
And let's play a game. Where do you think these illegal immigrants are moving? What do you think they are? Take a guess. It's the biggest
A lot of
states
them.
on the southern border. Come on now. They're moving to Texas. You know how many, there's a blue line on the border of Texas right now. There's a blue line that's rapidly growing.
Yeah.
And I
mean that. Oh, actually, no, it's not growing. It's actually begun to shrinking though, because the blue line is actually beginning to turn purple, and then it's beginning to turn red.
Redistricting.
No, it's not redistricting.
Oh, and by the way, thank you to Kaiser Bob. ICE is allegedly ordering their officers not to arrest people as they walk across.
Yeah, I mean, when they get, now you might not see it in the next election cycle. It might not show up on charts right now, but once they gain the ability to vote and they actually receive amnesty, you're going to see a blue wave in Texas. That's just a fact.
Well, possibly. It just depends on if they get it, and then it's just that's a whole lot of what ifs there. So we won't go into that.
I mean, they're already there. They just need to become citizens.
But let's just move on. Let's move on.
All right. So our final topic for our final scheduled topic for the evening will be the regional monarchies question, but I will first sort of add a new topic in, and that is the hullabaloo that has been resolved about President Biden's attendance at the funeral of Queen Elizabeth II. The royals, as in the King of the Belgians, Emperor of Japan, King of Sweden, they and their wives are hopping on a bus, the same bus as each other. The president was meant to be on that bus. However, we have learned in the last few days that he will be taking the Beast with him to London and using that.
For those of you who don't know, that's the official presidential limo.
Yes. And he will be using that as his transport instead of the big bus with all the royals in.
I mean, he's not a
royal. Well, Of course, he was invited on that bus because he's the head of state.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he's not a royal by any stretch of the imagination, but I think so. He's going in the presidential limo. Is there any precedent to this, or as a president? Oh, I don't know if they don't know how the situation was with I think King George, the last monarch they had.
The president did not go to the funeral of King George the
Sixth.
I lost six. The president did not attend that funeral, but we have to remember that funeral was 70 something years ago, and I think the U.S.
Yeah,
Secretary of State went.
yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking about. I don't know. I just don't have an opinion on it. If okay, so he's taking his private limo to a funeral of the head of state of the UK. I don't. I don't know if that's good or bad. Quite honestly, my initial opinion is like, wow,
Actually,
okay.
I actually think it's good because if he's on that bus with all those royals, that is a huge target on that whole bus's back.
I mean, it's already a huge target. You know,
Yeah.
Well,
without
obviously.
um, that's the first thought I had. It's like every head of state for every monarchy on the same bus. That's not necessarily the best idea, if I'm quite honest. But um, if he's taking his own, you say limo? Is that what he's taking?
Yes.
Yes.
I don't know. Um, it's just kind of a My first thought is it's kind of taking or trying to take the some cloud away from like the funeral. I don't know. That's my first thought about it, but that's just like an initial thought that I had. Um, I don't know.
Like, yeah, look, it's the Secret Service was never going to allow President Biden on that bus to begin with
Yeah,
because,
the most prudent thing would be to get an armored car, a usual regular armored car that they have on regular things, and just go. I wouldn't want to. If I was the president, God forbid, I wouldn't want to show up in a bulletproof limo to the Queen's funeral.
well,
That,
unfortunately, the president is required to travel in an armored vehicle.
well, I said an regular armored vehicle, not a limo or not something too extravagant. Um, I don't know.
Well, let's move on to our final topic then. What would we do with the states and the native tribes in our sort of a system?
Now, are we talking about the ideal, like what we personally want? So,
Let's
what we
talk
want?
about the ideal. Let's talk about our organization's official position first, and then we'll go into our ideals. And I believe, as Chancellor, you have that official position prepared.
Yeah.
Um, I believe it is. We will give to the states the option on the type of monarchy that they will have. So they will have free reign over the type of monarchy. So elective monarchy, um, a constitutional monarchy, so a ceremonial monarchy with the head of government of that state being the governor or something like that. Um, uh, so essentially, they will have free reign to add whatever type of monarchy they want to their constitution, as long as they have a type of or a type of monarchy. I believe that's what we spoke about, with the exception
Right.
being the District of Columbia, which we've talked about being the domain of the monarch himself, the emperor himself. He will have domain over the District of Columbia, and that's about it. Or the federal territories as well. something like what the Queen has, so she has direct, that kind of thing. Yeah,
But what
that's the
in
actual, you know.
right?
I
But
tend to agree with it. I don't know about you guys. Now this all depends on whether or not you would want, ideally, for your own picture perfect vision of an American monarchy, would you want a federal system or not? That's the huge thing to ask.
well, what I would,
I mean,
well, personally, if I can go first,
hey, you go, Victor. You go.
personally, I think that if we're doing a monarchy, in modern day, we have to keep the state boundaries the way they are. There is no way around that. If the states want to keep their current state constitutions and essentially elect a governor every 4 years, etc., they should be free to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Because we literally cannot do otherwise if we want this type of system to work here. Now, if we were a monarchy from the start, it would be a completely different story. But we aren't.
Yeah,
So,
to maintain the federal. In my opinion, we will have to maintain the federal system regardless of what we do. My ideal, my ideal is kind of what the party, or not party, the organization says, kind of, because states are kind of experimental labs, or the opportunity for any.
New ideas to be tested out
Yeah,
first before they go nationally.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
I agree. Like I think that the states should still be allowed to have, their own little democracies and such, because I still think it's important to have those small ones. I think that we should make, I guess you could say, like little duchies, like out of combinations of states, like along cultural areas. Like I kind of think it'd be a good idea to have the Duchy of New England, the like you could say the southern somewhat. I don't know. We don't have good names here in the U.S. for heaven's sakes. I mean, seriously, our region names are crap.
yeah, I mean, I kind of like that idea, but then you're gonna have to. I don't know. I kind of like it. We just have to figure out,
Like
what the
who?
preparation.
Like
I
who
think that
and what
it's
order?
been done before in several fictional renditions of the United States. There's
Yeah,
another year
I,
between
cer-
the.
I certainly think it's possible, and I think it might be a good idea to have that duke or duchess as a good kind of like regional unifying figure to also like overlook
Yeah, and
politics in
then,
those states
and
as
then
well. Yeah,
you can have a king as the national monarch, and I've kind of
yeah.
it. For me, that's a constant kind of back and forth. I
Mm.
honestly, a king rolls off the tongue a lot better, if I'm honest. But I know that America is a huge nation.
We're
But
we're also a very kind of federalist kind of country.
yeah,
People like smaller stuff, and that's why I kind of think like I'm not saying give the dukes and the duchesses a lot of power. Obviously, I'm just saying have it as sort of a to help administer those areas. You know?
yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean,
that's kind of what I would think. I think it would just make it a lot easier and better, and also have somebody who is hopefully more local to that area to help cement the monarchy and popularity and other such stuff like that, and kind of like do like some ceremonial stuff, like more minor ceremonial stuff when the monarch is not able to be there, because the monarch, of course, represents the whole nation as a whole and will represent in international affairs, whereas the dukes and duchesses will help represent more smaller local affairs. So
honestly, I kind of like that idea. I
yeah,
do get vibes of kind of like the constitutional monarchy that the UK has, where they're kind of
yeah.
on the side and just doing stuff, as
Mhm.
opposed to the actual monarch who. I mean, it would have to. There'd need to be a lot of constitutional change to the country to do that. But
I mean, we're establishing a monarchy. We kind of have to change a lot here, anyways.
yeah, Yeah, we
Yeah.
already, that's kind of baked into our ideals, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
At the very minimum, we would be changing the head of, the executive of the United States to a monarch. So at the very least, we are changing a vital part of one of the three branches of government.
Yeah.
You know, and then there's the whole, okay, if we have royals, should they be in the upper house of the legislature or not?
Mm-hmm.
And then what the state legislators look like as opposed to
Yeah.
all the different
Especially,
ones.
like, yeah, I would say leave that just down to the states, or maybe like to the dukes and duchesses to let them figure that part out about how they want, like depending on if we just do like a state, or like, personally, I think certain states should probably be like just lumped together to make it easier, like lump the Carolinas together, just despite South Carolina. I mean, why?
What I think would be cool is if we had 13 duchies underneath the monarch, because I love the 13.
Yes, but that's also an unlucky number, though.
I mean, I like the 13.
I know. But I mean, like, yeah.
Kind of to mimic the original 13 colonies, and to also kind of, I don't know, trim the number down, because, now our
Yeah.
official, tomorrow our official thing, and I don't even think it was written in a platform of what we do with the states. I think it was just decided upon. But if I were to deal with I honestly like that a lot more than the idea we came up with a year or two ago.
Yeah.
But
So just to kind of recap on it. My idea is, of course, to have regional monarchs, but not just in a state. I would say more of we take certain, like, quote unquote cultural areas like New England, parts of the South, part of the Plains, the Pacific, the Midwest, and we clump those areas together into a new, quote unquote, duchy, named to be subject to change, of course. And we have them as like the king's representative in that area. Because of course the king can't be everywhere at once, and the king
So
also has to represent
basically,
us.
the
The king
Duke.
has to represent internationally, so the more dukes and duchesses will represent more local areas.
Right. So the Duke of X or the Duke of Y.
Yes.
yeah, and I
All
think the
right.
big thing is,
That
okay,
would
what
be
we're
that
gonna
would
do.
be that would be very, very good. Of course, in a system where I would, in my ideal, it would be the sort of, we would be basically creating duchies out of different parts of each U.S. state, so that
Yeah.
we would have hyper localized rule. Like, for example, uh let me just come up with something good here. The Duchy of Philadelphia is very different from the Duchy of Harrisburg, is different from the Duchy of Allentown, is different from the Duchy of Scranton, is different
Yeah,
from the Duchy of
Well, I mean,
Pittsburgh, is different from the Duchy of Erie.
I think,
well,
like, if you at that
we're
small, you
yeah, we
like
don't want.
probably
We're not saying
count.
that small. We're saying more of like clumping states together into
Oh,
their own little
states
duchies. Yeah,
together. Got it.
we don't want like that, because that's way too small, and that leaves way too many.
Yeah, we don't want like 5,000
Yeah, we
different.
want. I'm saying like no more than 25. No more than 25.
Yeah,
25 dukes, and then under them would be however many counts.
yeah,
Yeah. But
I
I
like,
would say the counts that we should leave that up to the dukes and his or her majesty to figure it out.
and then of course
His or her grace.
the
His
states
or
would
her
make,
grace.
Yeah, his or her grace. You're right. His or her grace.
and all we would need to ask the states is to change their term from governor to governor general, and then we just, I don't know if we'd need a constitution over the region, or a kind of a common law constitution like the Brits have or something.
I don't think a commonwealth, because a commonwealth constitution is a bit more different. That's way more
I
like
said common
countries are
law.
more
It's up
independent than each
to,
other
I
too.
would leave it up to the individual dukes to decide that.
Yeah,
Yeah, more
exactly.
so
Leave it
I
up to
talking
the
don't
about.
want to get too deep into the weeds.
Yeah, I was more so talking about like the UK's constitution, where it's kind of like common law as opposed to like
It's
a document.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
see. Yeah, I see what you're saying. But let's leave that up to the dukes to decide how they
I mean
want to govern in their area.
that's the 10th Amendment. Whatever's so not be done by the federal government may be deferred to the states. I mean that's the that I think that would carry through system
Yes,
change.
it would. It would. Yes, it would carry through the day. Now, the thing that I really wanted to mention here, the native tribes. What
Oh
do
yeah,
we do about the native tribes?
I've actually had some thought about this.
Then
I
go,
would
go on.
like my ideal would probably be giving each tribe the choice to either federalize with other tribes or make their own sub monarchy. And
Which
kind
some
of
of them already have their own. Well, they may not want a sub-monarchy. Some of these tribes have, or all of these tribes have their own government structure.
yeah, I mean there is native
Like,
council and
there's nothing
stuff.
wrong with them just keeping their government structure intact.
I mean their government structure is basically monarchistic. A lot of them are with the council system, with the elder system, stuff like that. So just
Man,
take that.
I wish we had Aiden on tonight so he could give
Yeah,
more intelligent thoughts to this
yeah,
particular
but then
part of the
again,
question.
he's only one of many different tribes. I think he's I don't know exactly what tribe up in Alaska is, but I do know that of course there's like a lot of different because there were tribes that were kind of elective monarchies in a way that were um, selected among. So the elder, the chief, would be elected among, uh, of course, the elders of the tribe, and then there would be by a council, which is basically an elective monarchy. Um, and then there would be hereditary and a lot of different things like that. But the big
Mhm.
thing is there's so many um, tribes that it kind of gets hard to. We'd end up with like 5,000 different.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the more major problems with that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I would say like give them the opportunity to federalize or something, like as a tribe or as a collection of tribes. But
Mm.
that would be just I don't know. I would like the idea of eventually incorporating big bigger tribes as states. Like how big is the Navajo Nation? Last I checked, it was like
I don't know. It's kind of big. I think it's like kind of as big as like I think almost as big as maybe like New Jersey, maybe. It's pretty
yeah.
big.
I would say
It
that
it controls like a good amount of it's in a good amount of Arizona and New Mexico, sure.
yeah. I would say in that case make them a state of sorts, and
Yeah.
then allow them to have a native monarchy, whether elective or hereditary, and then go from there. You know, just the system that they've always had, and try and like I would say try and reinforce a lot of the try and like allow more of the native traditions to flourish.
Mhm. And
Yes,
honestly,
we really
they
need to
need
do
to
that.
yeah, and they really need to be like broken up a bit more because when I mean that I mean like they need to be more decentralized because they're
Yeah,
so massively centralized that they're so stunted in their growth.
yeah. I mean that's kind of like the problem in a lot of ways. Yeah, if
Right. So,
that's given us. And I actually was talking to somebody earlier. It's like, oh, a monarchy will never work, in America. But the reason why they think that is because they have a very um, elementary view of what a monarchy is, and they don't consider
well,
them.
let's discuss the elephant in the room. Let's discuss Hawaii, which was itself an independent monarchy.
Yep.
What do we do about Hawaii? I don't know who the claimant to Hawaii is. Do
Yeah.
we set Hawaii free? Or is Hawaii a U.S. sort of state under the hereditary monarch of Hawaii from the old ruling house?
And that kind of be interesting with Prussian's idea of having multiple states over one. duchy. So but that would work because you would have a king. If we have an emperor, then the king or the queen of Hawaii would be valid. We wouldn't have a king ruling over a king or something like that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So I suppose, does anybody have any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't. So sorry. Go on, John.
yeah, I mean, we could kind of go over the specifics all day. With
Yeah, but
I think a lot of the
Yeah, and we can do that another time.
we could maybe do
Let's
for a episode like, okay,
all
who
right.
think would be over a state or
All
whatever.
right. So, all right. If you would like to listen to this podcast live, you can join us on Discord Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern. Follow us on our different social media platforms, links to which will be in the description. September is National Suicide Prevention Month. If you or someone you know is experiencing suicidal thoughts or tendencies, feel free to contact the National Suicide Prevention Hotline and get help. This is no joke. Suicide affects a lot of people, and as we did last year, we really should be shedding a lot of light on this issue, especially in the month of September. Right. Now, let us conclude in prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, if we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from
Deliver us from
evil.
evil.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. All right.
amen.
Until next week, may God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.
And thank you so much for joining us on this wonderful day. We here at the Monarchists of America hope you have an absolutely wonderful day. God bless you.
Let's get the recording stopped.
How the heck? Does
We have to
Charles
scroll all
have
the
to
way
do it?
up. We have
Well,
to scroll. You have to scroll up in the chat to get it stopped. We have to
Okay.
scroll all the way up.
here,
Okay. Was it stopped?
Let me see.
here. I posted it. Just go. I did a reply to it, so you can go up and go up to it. Apologize to Charles for the little extra bit.